They thought they could access your destiny without consequences. They believed they could peek behind the veil of your life unchallenged. But what they never expected was for you to show up. Your spirit, your energy, your full conscious presence, materializing in that reading room. While someone paid to unveil your secrets, you demonstrated your true power by crossing spiritual planes and making your presence known. The reader's hands trembled, their breath caught. This wasn't just spiritual interference. This was you claiming your spiritual authority and putting everyone involved on notice. Nobody touches your destiny without permission, and now they'll never forget it. The incense smoke hung thick in the stuffy apartment. Cards spread across a velvet cloth reflected dim lamplight. A reader earned her living, peering into other people's futures. Tonight's reading paid triple her usual rate. She had done hundreds of readings before. Routine work, predictable energies. This reading felt different from the first moment. The client arrived with a photograph. Your photograph. I need to know everything about this person's future, the client said, sliding it across the table. Everything. The reader hesitated, fingers hovering over your image. A strange reluctance gripped her hands. Something whispered at the edge of her consciousness. A warning. She pushed the feeling aside. Triple pay meant triple effort. The cards shuffled between practiced fingers. The first card touched the table. Time stopped. The reader's breath caught in her throat. The temperature plummeted in an instant. Every hair on her body stood at attention. Her skin prickled with electricity. The incense smoke no longer drifted upward. It froze in place, then twisted violently, impossibly against gravity. The smoke formed a spiral, circling the table, circling your photograph. "He is here," she whispered, the words escaping involuntarily. Her client's eyes widened. "Who's here?" The reader couldn't speak, couldn't explain. The space between realms thinned to nothing. The veil separating worlds tore open. The candles flickered wildly, casting enormous shadows that moved independent of their source. The reader's crystals vibrated on their shelves. Her collection of protective stones suddenly useless. Her spirit guides vanished, fled from something they couldn't face. You had arrived. Not as a subject to be read, not as a passive energy to be interpreted. You arrived fully conscious, fully aware, fully present, watching, listening, judging. The reader's hands trembled against the table. 20 years of spiritual work, and she had never felt anything like this. This wasn't a spirit passing through. This wasn't a gentle guide offering wisdom. This wasn't an ancestor bringing comfort. This was presence beyond categorization. This was energy beyond containment. This was you, in your fullness, your sovereignty, your absolute authority. This was something else entirely. The client shifted uncomfortably in their seat. They had gone to considerable lengths to arrange this reading. 5 different psychics had refused outright when they mentioned your name. 2 more had agreed initially, then called back with sudden schedule conflicts. This reader was the 8th attempt, the most expensive, the most desperate option. The client had spent weeks searching, making calls, following recommendations. Each rejection strengthened their resolve. Each denial made you more mysterious. Their obsession grew with every psychic who turned them away. The client had history with you, unfinished business, unresolved feelings, maybe a jealous ex who couldn't accept the relationship had ended, maybe a competitor who watched your success with burning envy, maybe someone who smiled to your face while plotting behind your back, maybe family with expectations you refused to meet, maybe an employer you outgrew too quickly. Their reasons didn't matter. Their desperation did. The darkness driving them spoke volumes about their character. The lengths they went to revealed everything about their intentions. They needed to know your future, your vulnerabilities, your weak points. They craved control over what couldn't be controlled. They sought power over what refused to be diminished. Knowledge is power, your knowledge specifically. 3-month salary paid for this reading. A small price for the secrets they sought. They mortgaged future security for present advantage. They sacrificed stability for the promise of control. They thought they were clever. They thought they were pulling strings from a safe distance. The spiritual equivalent of hacking into someone's private files. A transaction, simple, clean, detached. A business arrangement with a spiritual mercenary. No connection to the consequences. No responsibility for the invasion. What they failed to understand, they hadn't hired someone to hack your spiritual data. They hadn't commissioned a spiritual breaking and entering. They hadn't arranged a mystical surveillance operation. They had inadvertently opened a direct connection to you. They had created a bridge between worlds. They had sent an invitation, and you had accepted. The client leaned forward, oblivious to the catastrophic mistake they'd just made. Why did it get so cold in here? Is something wrong? The reader's eyes never left the smoke spiral above your photograph. You didn't tell me who this person really is. I don't understand. You should have told me. Professional readers develop instincts. They sense danger before it arrives. This reader had felt the warning signs from the beginning. The cards felt heavy in her hands when she picked them up. Unusually dense, resistant. The pendulum on her shelf, perfectly still all evening, had started swinging wildly the moment your photograph touched her table. Her spirit guides, normally chattering with insights and directions, fell silent. The silence itself was a message, a blaring alarm in negative space. Before shuffling the first card, pressure built in her chest, a physical manifestation of spiritual resistance. Don't do this. The message couldn't have been clearer without words. This isn't someone you read without permission. This isn't someone whose path you interfere with. This isn't someone whose energy you touch uninvited. She ignored every warning sign. Triple payment, a chance to impress a new client, professional pride. The justification seemed reasonable in the moment. Her fingers touched the first card, placed it on the table. The Tower. Sudden destruction. Catastrophic change. The moment the card touched the velvet, everything changed. Reality itself seemed to bend, the boundaries between worlds thinning to nothing. The apartment no longer felt like her territory. Her sanctuary violated not by an intruder, but by her own actions. She had opened a door without understanding what waited on the other side. Most spiritual presences arrive gently, subtle impressions. At the edge of awareness, a slight temperature change, a faint smell of flowers or smoke, the sensation of being watched, the whisper of a message, the gentle touch of a hand no longer physical, a mild disruption of electromagnetic fields, a soft flicker of lights. Spiritual visitors typically enter with deference, hesitant, respectful of boundaries. They wait for acknowledgement. They seek permission. They approach gradually, careful not to overwhelm the living. They understand their place in the hierarchy of realms, not you. The moment your name was spoken over your image, you arrived with absolute authority. No gentle transition, no gradual manifestation. One moment absent, the next fully present. One moment separate, the next completely integrated into the space. The room's energy didn't shift, it transformed completely. The air became electric, heavy, charged with potential. The space between particles compressed. The distance between realms collapsed. What was once an apartment became a threshold between worlds. The reader gasped as the distinct feeling of another consciousness pressed against her mind, not brushing against her awareness, not touching her thoughts, overwhelming her completely, flooding her perception. Her psychic defenses crumbled instantly, her mental shields shattered, not asking permission to enter, not waiting to be invited, not respecting the boundaries of her sacred space, not acknowledging her authority in her own domain, not playing by the established rules of spiritual visitation, taking control, claiming the space, establishing dominance without effort, asserting authority without struggle, transforming her territory into yours in an instant. rewriting the spiritual geography of the room with your presence alone. The energy concentrated, focused, intensified, until it became almost solid. Light bent around corners it shouldn't have reached. Shadows formed where no objects blocked the light. Who called me? Your energy vibrated through the room with unmistakable demand. The words formed without sound, understood without being heard. The question resonated in their bones, echoed in their blood, the demand for accountability transmitted directly to consciousness, not a whisper, not a suggestion, a command that rattled the windows. A presence that pressed against the walls, a force that made the physical world acknowledge the spiritual, a power that made material reality bend to immaterial will. The reader's hands shook violently. Cards scattered across the table. The tower. Card landed face up at the client's feet. A personal message. The judgment card fell directly onto your photograph. No coincidence. The rest of the deck scattered like frightened birds, some cards even standing on edge. Her client pushed back in their chair, eyes darting around the room, looking for something visible to justify their terror, searching for a physical explanation for a metaphysical event. Their rational mind desperately trying to categorize the uncategorizable. What's happening? The client's voice pitched higher with each word. Their confidence evaporated. Their control dissolved, their plan forgotten in the face of something beyond their comprehension, their arrogance replaced by primal fear of the unknown. The reader couldn't answer, her throat constricted. Her breath came in short, shallow gasps. 20 years of spiritual practice rendered useless in an instant. Decades of experience providing no protection, no context, no precedent. Her professional demeanor shattered by something she never anticipated. This was beyond her experience, beyond her ability to control. And now let's take a moment to salute the ones who were never meant to fit in, because they were born to stand out. Here's to the chosen ones, the silent forces, the watchers in the dark, always aware, always steps ahead, moving differently, thinking beyond, seeing what others refuse to acknowledge. They don't walk the easy road, they forge their own. They battle forces unseen, breaking illusions, rewriting fate itself. It's a path few dare to tread, and that's exactly why. They do it no masks, no pretense, just raw, unshakable truth. That's the Obsidian Inner Order, a sanctuary for those who know they were never meant to follow. Over 450 invincible chosen ones, not bound by rules, but by purpose. A brotherhood and sisterhood of cosmic disruptors, truth seekers and divine warriors. If you feel it in your bones, you already know where to find us. Links in the description. If not, that's fine. We'll still be here, watching, guiding, shifting reality itself. This is for the ones who don't need recognition, who don't ask for permission, who simply are. Here's to you. You arrived first, your vanguard. Behind you came others, many others, your ancestors, generations of your bloodline moving in silent formation, your spirit guides, ancient energies aligned with your soul's journey, your protectors, fierce, vigilant forces dedicated to your spiritual safety. They entered like a divine army, disciplined, coordinated, overwhelming. The reader felt them arrive in waves, pressure building with each new presence. The client felt it too. Though spiritually untrained, even they sensed the crowding of unseen forces. The small apartment couldn't contain the gathering energy. The walls seemed to expand and contract with each new arrival. Pictures tilted on the walls, books vibrated on shelves, the crystal hanging in the window spun wildly, casting frantic rainbows across the room. There are so many, the reader whispered, so many of them. The client's face drained of color. So many what? The reader couldn't explain, couldn't find words for the spiritual court that had assembled around you. The room no longer belonged to her. Her sacred space had been claimed, her client no longer controlled the situation. Their plan had crumbled completely. The client came seeking information about you, your vulnerabilities, your future. They expected to be the interrogator, the one asking questions, the one gaining power. The reversal happened. So completely they barely registered the shift. The cards on the table rearranged themselves. Not in any configuration the reader recognized, not for you, for them. Your energy focused like a spotlight, not being examined, examining, not being questioned, questioning. The client felt naked, exposed, transparent, every calculation, every motivation. Every grudge and grievance laid bare under your spiritual gaze. Sweat beaded on their forehead, their heart hammered against their ribs. "Make it stop," they demanded, voice cracking. The reader shook her head slowly. "I can't." "What do you mean you can't? This is your place, your session." "Not anymore." The reader's voice shook with certainty. "This isn't my reading anymore." The client's secrets surfaced against their will, their hidden intentions exposed. They came to unveil your future. Instead, their own past unfolded before them. Every manipulative moment, every jealous thought, every act of sabotage reflected back at them with perfect clarity. They understood finally the terrible miscalculation they had made. The reading ended abruptly. Your energy withdrew. Not banished, but retreating of its own accord. The client fled without paying the remaining balance. The reader sat alone in her apartment, hands still trembling hours later. Something fundamental had broken inside her. The carefully cultivated connection to her intuition damaged, the trust in her spiritual guides fractured. The confidence in her abilities shattered. In the days that followed, her other readings failed. Cards yielded nonsensical meanings. Predictions fell flat. Insights dried up. Clients noticed. Bookings declined. Her reputation suffered. Her dreams filled with the memory of your presence, the overwhelming force of your energy. She'd violated a spiritual boundary, attempted to peer into the protected destiny of someone beyond her authority to read. The consequences didn't stop at professional failure. Unusual accidents plagued her home. Electronics malfunctioned, pipes burst, keys disappeared. Nothing catastrophic, just the persistent sense that her life had fallen out of alignment. Some spiritual mistakes can't be undone. Some boundaries, once crossed, permanently alter your path. She considered abandoning her practice entirely. Perhaps it was safer that way. Perhaps the universe was sending her a message. Some doors should remain closed. Some energies should remain untouched. Some people should remain unread. The client who arranged the reading suffered immediate consequences. They came seeking leverage over you, control, advantage. They left with something else entirely. The Tower card that appeared wasn't meant for you. It was meant for them. Destruction, upheaval, the collapse of false structures. Within days, their carefully constructed life began unraveling. The promotion they expected, given to someone else. The relationship they valued, suddenly complicated by mistrust. The financial stability they relied on, undermined by unexpected expenses. Nothing went right. Nothing proceeded as planned. They tried to dismiss the connection. Coincidence, bad luck, random chance. Deep down, they knew better. Each setback carried the same energy signature they felt in the reader's apartment. Each obstacle felt intentional, directed, personal, not revenge. Something more fundamental. Balance being restored, spiritual debt being collected. They sought a weapon to use against you. Instead, they forged the instrument of their own undoing. The universe has laws. Attempting to interfere with someone's protected destiny carries costs. They were paying those costs with interest. Each night, they dreamed of cards turning, of smoke spiraling, of unseen eyes watching, of judgment without appeal. Experienced spiritual workers understand the hierarchy of souls. Some people move through life with basic protections, the standard spiritual immune system. Others carry stronger shields, old souls, empaths, natural psychics. Then there are chosen ones, souls with specific purposes, destinies aligned with universal forces, protected at levels beyond ordinary understanding. The reader had encountered your kind before. She should have recognized the signs. The client never stood a chance of understanding. Their spiritual ignorance offered no protection. Trying to read a chosen one without consent violates fundamental spiritual law. Like hacking into a secure government system, like breaking into a fortified vault, the security measures don't just keep you out, they catch you in the act. The response is not random, not accidental. It's the spiritual equivalent of an immune response. Targeted, efficient, overwhelming. Chosen ones don't need to consciously defend themselves. The universe does that automatically. Their protection operates on levels beyond conscious control. Laws of spiritual sovereignty are absolute, non-negotiable. The reader knew better, should have known better. The client learned the hard way. Some energies are not to be touched without invitation. Some destinies are not to be interfered with. Some people are simply untouchable. Your appearance in the reading wasn't just a momentary intrusion. You'd left something behind, a spiritual signature, a mark. The reader felt it immediately, an energetic residue that couldn't be cleansed with sage or salt. The client carried it too, invisible but unmistakable to anyone with spiritual sight. Not a curse exactly, not that deliberate, more like evidence, a spiritual fingerprint at the scene of their transgression. The mark changed how the universe responded. To them, how energy flowed through their lives, protection that once shielded them dissolved, luck that once favored them reversed. The reader attempted cleansing rituals, energy healing, spiritual baths. Nothing removed the mark. The client consulted other psychics seeking solutions. Each one identified the same problem. Someone is watching you, they all said in different words. Why is everything going wrong? The client demanded. The new psychic stared at the energy signature surrounding them. Recognition dawned in her eyes. You tried to read someone you shouldn't have. No further explanation needed. The mark wasn't punishment. It was consequence. It wasn't vengeance. It was balance. It wasn't forever. Just long enough. Long enough for lessons to be learned, for spiritual debts to be paid, for the universe to restore what they had attempted to disrupt. Words spread quickly through spiritual circles, not through gossip or direct communication, through dreams, through sudden insights, through cards repeatedly showing the same message. The reader wouldn't speak your name aloud again, wouldn't even think it intentionally. But other sensitives caught glimpses, impressions, warnings, a chosen one who defended their sovereignty, who appeared when summoned without permission, who reversed the reading onto those who sought to exploit them. Your reputation grew without your knowledge or effort. Psychics declined readings about you, refused payment no matter how high. I don't read certain energies, they would say carefully. It's not safe. I can't look at that person's future, I'm sorry. Some paths are protected, I won't interfere. Your enemies found themselves increasingly isolated, cut off from spiritual intelligence they once relied on. Practitioners who might have helped them recognize the signature of someone they dared not cross. The fear spread quietly, efficiently, not through words but through knowing. Even skeptics who dismissed spiritual laws entirely felt inexplicable reluctance when your name arose, a vague discomfort, a sense of risk not worth taking. Your enemies remained frozen in place, paralyzed by uncertainty, unable to see your next move, unable to prepare or defend. While you moved forward unimpeded, they remained trapped in the consequences of their transgression. What happened in that reading wasn't an accident or coincidence. It was confirmation. Proof of what you already sensed about yourself. You are different, protected in ways others are not. You didn't just react to spiritual intrusion, you countered it completely. You didn't just defend, you claimed the battlefield. You didn't just stop the reading, you reversed it, turned it back on those who initiated it. You sealed away those who tried to access your path without permission, made them an example, a cautionary tale for others who might consider the same. Violation. The universe responded to your sovereignty not because you demanded it, because it was already established, already recognized on levels beyond human understanding. Your soul carries authority that doesn't need to be claimed or proven. It simply is. Those who respect that authority find you generous, supportive, uplifting. Those who violate it discover why boundaries exist in the first place. Your energy doesn't seek conflict, doesn't hunt for transgressions to punish. It responds when challenged, defends when threatened, establishes order when chaos attempts to intrude. No one can access what belongs to you alone. No one can interfere with what has already been written in your destiny. No one can touch what the universe itself has declared untouchable. That night remains etched in multiple memories. The reader who abandoned her practice, haunted by the boundary she crossed. The client whose life collapsed under the weight of spiritual consequence. The wider community of sensitives who recognized a power beyond their influence. They all witnessed the same truth from different angles. You exist beyond unauthorized access. You move through reality on your own terms. Your destiny unfolds according to divine timing, not human interference. The reader will never forget what happened that night. The overwhelming presence that claimed her sacred space. The client will never recover what they lost in that ill-fated session. The security and certainty shattered by their own actions. You continue forward, perhaps unaware of battles won on your behalf. Your conscious mind might not register every defense mounted in your name, but some part of you knows. Some part of you has always known. You don't just exist in the physical realm, moving through material reality. You exist in the spiritual as a force of reckoning, sovereign, protected, untouchable. The evidence speaks for itself. The consequences confirm it. The spiritual world acknowledges it. You cannot be touched without permission. You cannot be read without consent. You cannot be influenced against your will. Your path is yours alone to walk. Your destiny is yours alone to fulfill. Your energy is yours alone to direct. This is not ego, not pride, not special treatment. This is spiritual law in action. This is universal balance maintained. This is the natural order preserved. When they tried to spy on your future, they discovered a fundamental truth. Some souls answer to higher authorities. Some boundaries cannot be crossed without consequence. Some people cannot be touched.